Hi, I'm Guy Mussey. I'm the horticultural agent with Virginia Cooperative Extension. Today, I'm going to show you how to take a proper soil test sample. Okay, so today, what I want to do is show you how to take a proper soil sample to get a soil test done. So why would you want to get a soil test done, you might ask yourself? Well, for one, people a lot of times, and you see this quite often in the 20 years as an extension agent, I see this all the time. Something is going on with their lawn or their plants, and so they decide to start putting fertilizer down or pesticides or lime. And what happens to all that, especially if it isn't necessary, it runs off and goes into our waterways. Like here, it would be the Rappahannock River. And we need to stop just indiscriminately putting products down. So you really need to have a beginning. You need to know what you need and then put things down if you need to at a correct rate. And when you're dealing with soil samples and soil tests, either you already have a problem and you're trying to correct it, or you want to establish a new planting or a new lawn. Now, if it's a problem that you're trying to correct, think of it in this way. If you had your vehicle and it wasn't running and you decide you're going to fix it yourself, you don't want to take it to the garage or to an expert, and you just start doing things. You start maybe change the tires for it, and that doesn't help. Or you change the oil, and that doesn't help. Or you might change the bulb inside, and that doesn't help. It seems silly, but certainly you have no idea which way to go. You don't have a good diagnosis, and you need to really start from the beginning to find out why it isn't running. Well, it's the same way with taking a soil sample and getting the soil test done. It begins with knowing what is happening in that soil, right? And there may be other things as well. There may be too much shade, there may be too much water, or it may be too dry or too compacted. But the first thing you have to start with is a soil sample, because especially here in Virginia, our soils, our indigenous soils, are pretty much a low pH, they're acidic, and lawns do not like that. So you need to correct that by putting lime products down, but you need to know how much and how to do it. So we're going to show you how to go about and take a soil sample. I get a lot of questions. We give out a lot of soil sample kits every year for people wanting to get a soil test done, but they have no idea how to take a good sample. Remember, the report you get from the lab is only as good as the sample you take. Okay, so you're going to need some things to take a soil test or soil samples. It's really not that complicated. It's not a whole lot. But the very first thing you need to do is get a soil test kit from any extension office. You can get one at ours at the Rouser building. We have them outside the front door. You can just go pick one up. It doesn't cost anything to pick up the soil test kit, but it does cost $10 to send your soil sample in. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So let me put this down for now and show you some of the tools. Now, the first thing I have is a soil probe to take the soil samples with. Now, you don't have to go out and buy one of these. I have one because I take a lot of soil samples around and help people with that in my job. But this would be a really nice item to be able to take the soil samples. If you don't have a soil probe, you can use any kind of a trowel. This is a soil knife. This works really nice. Or any kind of digging trowel that you can get. A hand trowel would help take the samples as well. You also need a bucket or a container of some sort to put your samples in. Now, as I said earlier, the report you get back from the lab is only as good as the samples you take. So it's very important that you take good samples. If it's for turf, you want to go down about 3 to 4 inches of soil to get a good soil sample. If you're dealing with trees, you might want to go a little deeper. But you should do at least a minimum of 10 samples around your yard, if you're in one part of the yard, and mix them together in a bucket to send that in. Okay, if you have a front yard and a backyard, you might want a different sample for the backyard, and I would not mix the front and the back up. Now, if it's in a pasture or something like that, the general recommendations is about every 10,000 square feet. That's a lot of territory. I'd probably try to do a few more soil samples for that, but this is really for residential. So you need to, even if it's a small yard, you need to do a sample for the front yard and for the backyard. And keep in mind, on the soil sample, it gives and I'll show you this a little bit later, it has some codes for what you're trying to take the soil sample for, where it's turf, a warm season versus cool season, whether it's trees or vegetable gardens or flowers or something, and you need to use that code properly. Okay, so you're going to start taking your samples now. You need to find different spots in the yard, and what I would recommend if you're using a trowel is scrape off any organic matter. If you've fertilized recently, if you've limed recently, scrape that off because that will skew your report if that goes into the sample. You want a true sample of the soil that you're taking. So you just dig down and get down, about 3 or 4 inches, and you just cut out some soil and put it in the bucket. Trying to get a little bit deeper. Depending on how hard the soil is, if it's mostly clay, it's going to be very difficult taking a sample. So you might want to wet it a little bit, not to mud or too wet, but certainly to be able to get through into it. And so you're going to take some samples of the soil, and again, you removed anything on the top to get a true sample. Okay? And it's really pretty simple. You can just kind of kick it around and fill the hole in. And now what you're going to do is, as I said earlier, you want at least a minimum of 10 samples, even in this small yard. Because again, the better the sample is that you're sending there, you can send all this volume to the soil testing lab at Virginia Tech. But certainly you want to get a good sample around the yard. So you just go around and dig it out and put it in there and mix it together. If it's a little moist, let it dry overnight, okay, so that you have a good sample to put in. Okay, so you've got the first pour of soil out for your sample. Again, you need at least 10, so I might take one over here and dig another hole for more, maybe one there, one in the back, over, and I would go around just sporadically to get my at least 10 samples. The more samples you get, of course, the better the soil test report will be, the more accurate it will be. Okay, so now we did the sample for the yard. I took more than 10 just to make sure that we get a good report back. And they're all in this bucket, and I'm going to show you about how much we have. It's probably not quite a quarter of this. That's a lot of soil. You're not going to be sending all that soil in, but you're going to mix it together and get a good sample. You can make sure you take out any weeds that have gone in with it or twigs, any large debris. You don't have to clean it completely, but you want to make sure some old roots, but that you have a good sample of only soil. Okay, you want to mix it up real good, and just again, if it's a little too moist, let it set overnight. This is just right though. Okay, so we're going to put this in a soil sample kit and fill out the form and show you how to do that. Okay, so now you might ask yourself, what are we going to do with all that soil? As I said, there's a lot more that you need, so you're going to take out enough to fill this box, and then you can put it back. All right, but it will give you, mixing it up gives you a good sample. So what we call a soil test kit is really just a collapsed box with some forms, okay? And all you need to do is fold this box so that, and it has little latches on it, okay? So you fold it and push it in and connect it. Now this is what you're going to be, this is the amount of soil you're going to be putting. So I'm going to take a handful, and I've already mixed it. I have another big root in there, and I'm going to fill up this sample box with soil. Okay, so there it is. Pretty simple. And then all you do is close it up, and it's ready to send. Now, first of all, You will notice on the side of the soil sample box, there's a place to put your name, and then there's a sample, your sample ID. It's a number or letters or whatever you want to put. Now, say you're taking a sample, you're going to send in a sample from the front yard, backyard, so you have two of them. You can just put like whatever you want to indicate where that report is reporting on, what section. So there's 5 squares. You can just put front, and then on the one that you do in the back, you can just put back. If you're taking 2 in the front for each side, you put front 1, front 2, whatever you want, because the same code that you're putting on here will be in the on the form. That way, if the form is separated from that particular sample at the lab, they know where the report, or where the send the report and where it goes. So this is an example of the report. You fill out the top with your name, address, email. You will get a report sent to you via email, so make sure you have an email address for that. Okay? And then in this little box is the sample identification. So, and it's got 5 boxes, just like this box does. So if you put front 1, or back 1, or front, or whatever you want to put, you can, put part of your name. My name is Mussey. I might put MUSS1 or something. You would put in those squares or boxes as well, so that they know that this sample of soil goes with this form, so you'll get the right report sent to you. Also on the report is the plant to be grown, and there's 3 boxes. Now, why is that important? Because they will send you back recommendations. Not just they'll tell you what is in your soil. I think there's about 8 or 9 minerals that they test for: phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron. But they tell you if you need lime, for instance, for your yard, and say you do a soil sample for your garden and one for your yard, and the soil sample the report comes back the same as far as nutrients and all, but their recommendations for lime will be different, because grass or lawns need more lime than a vegetable garden would. So it's important to put the right code, and there's a list of different plants on it with a 3-digit code. For instance, establishing a new lawn is 201, maintaining the lawn, repair of bare spots, okay, is 202. If you're growing, say for instance, blueberries, 222. And so the list with the numbers are on the form. You put them in that code there, okay? Then if you put any lime down, there's a place to put that, and what you've done and when you put lime down. And then really, it's just a matter of following the instructions. There's a $10 fee for a basic test. That's really what most people need. You don't need another $4 for organic matter and $2 for soluble salts. That's mainly for greenhouses or for nurseries. But you really don't need those. The basic $10 test is all you really need. And it tells you how to make out how to make the check, who to make the check to, and where to send it. So this goes with your soil sample. You need to package it up and send it to the soil testing lab, which has the instructions and the address on the form. And that's how you take a proper soil test sample so that you get a good soil test report in. I thank you for your time, and we'll be seeing each other again with more instructional videos.